What an astounding revolution. Bitcoin is immune from attack.
All right, welcome back to the Crypto Show's Digital Cash Evolution right here on the Bloomberg Network. And today I'm speaking with somebody who's been around for a little while, done quite a few things, and actually his old company still works quite well. At least the bottle openers do.
The bottle openers work great.
So I'm talking with Marco Peereboom of Decred. And this is another one of these cryptocurrencies that actually has a very interesting governance model, much like Dash and Nexus and all these other coins. Marco, tell me a little bit about how you got started in this, and then we can dive kind of into governance.
Okay. Well, so as Danny said, I'm Marco Peereboom. Been working in the crypto space for a couple of years at this point, and by a couple of years, I mean since 2010 or 11 is really when we started in earnest. So we did some online backup products that didn't work out, and then we pivoted into cryptocurrencies. And I want to say that around 2012, 2013 is when we felt there was a little bit of there were some issues in the Bitcoin space, and that's why we decided it was time to create our own. And so we started working on Decred. We designed it, we implemented it, and here we are. Years later, it's launched and it's active and doing things.
Well, so your first one was kind of like BitPay, co-invoice, which was a payment method to convert cryptocurrency into dollars for merchants. How did that lead you into Decred, or did you already have the idea for Decred before that?
Well, so that is where it's a little bit more complicated. So actually, we wrote an alternative implementation of the Bitcoin software. We wrote our own. It was called BTCD. It was really pretty, really well documented.
The BTCD?
Yeah, BTCD Suite is actually what it was.
Okay.
And so we put a business on top of that software as well, and that was a co-invoice or coinvoice, depending on who you talk to. It was a fun play on the word. So that said, that service did well. We were doing well with that service, but the government changed the rules, and we would have had to actually spend pretty substantial amounts of money to get registered, and we decided it was time to do different things.
Right here in Austin, there was a pretty controversial business that actually started using your service because BitPay would not help them, and that was Central Texas Gun Works.
That's right.
So the very first gun company probably in the world, I guess, to take cryptocurrencies was using Coinvoice. So on governance, you have all these. Bitcoin kind of falls short on governance. Bitcoin's different in that it doesn't really need the same level of governance, I guess, because it's the first mover. Why do you think governance really makes such a difference in up-and-coming cryptocurrencies?
Well, so I, as a big fan of Bitcoin, so I also think that Bitcoin does need governance, but they don't have it. And that was a design feature back then. And I'm not going to make people happy when I say that was, I think, a little bit of a mistake. So, but it is a feature, and I understand why it is the way it is. But when we were working on BTCD with the community, we felt that there were really two power structures. There were the miners, who essentially have all the power in the community because they are the ones who have right access to the ledger. And then there were the software developers that exert soft power, if you will, because they can convince most people that they're right and where things go. So, but there's no formal way of figuring out disputes, right? And so if people disagree, then in Bitcoin that devolves into people yelling at each other on Twitter, and it really does no good for the community. And projects like Bitcoin Cash and Ethereum are direct results of this bickering on.
Exactly. That's where Ethereum was born out of Colorcoin.
Right.
Vitalik was part of the Colorcoin project, and they didn't agree with what his vision was, so he started his own, and voila, we have Ethereum now.
So, and actually along those lines, actually that's how Decred was created as well, because we were frustrated with the pushback we were getting for the software that we were writing. So here we had a very well working, very well documented piece of software that was not received the way we were expected to be, right? Because we were more from the opinion that the internet is great because you have multiple web browsers. The internet is great because you have multiple TCP/IP implementations, not because you just have one of them. So, but that's not how they looked at it. So we also felt that we were shut out. And so the idea behind Decred is that we wanted to make the stakeholders the ones that were actually calling the shots. And that is where the whole governance thing came from.
Right. Do you see the kind of with these new coins, the coins that have governance models, that being profit driven because they're financially incentivized to act a certain way is better than with Bitcoin, where these developers are more ideologically driven or, you know, politically driven?
So I think there is I don't think there's a right answer there. I think that there is a mix of things that you need to have and you need to do in order to be a successful project. So, so part of our governance actually is that 10% of the block reward goes to a treasury. So, and that is actually paying for everything in the project. So all developers that work on Decred that get paid are being paid in Decred from that treasury.
Right.
So we have this entire economy essentially around our network, where people show up, do things, and then ultimately get paid in the currency that we work on and work with. So and that is obviously a nice way to actually compensate people, and and now you expand your network of things that people can and do work on.
It obviously works, and Dash has the same model, and what they're doing in Venezuela is kind of exploding, and it's because they're able to incentivize people on the ground to get out there and bring in new business.
Absolutely. Although, one thing that I actually wanted to touch on, so by having a treasury the way Decred has, what it actually does is it prevents software development centralization, which is a bit counterintuitive. So, but in Bitcoin, you had at one point Blockstream come in and they hired the majority of the Bitcoin developers. So I understand, right? These folks need to have a job, right? They need to put their children through college, so nothing crazy there. But what they did do is now you have a bit of a corporate agenda that these people are going to have to play by. No ifs and buts, right? So if you work for a corporation, you're going to have to do what the man tells you. So, and that's centralized development instead of decentralizing development. And the fact that we can pay our folks from our treasury means that they can remain wherever they're living, right, and wherever they are comfortable, and do the work there and still get paid in Decred.
Right. Do you see kind of how the block reward, or excuse me, how the prices for transactions went up so much? Did that benefit Blockstream, do you think? I mean, obviously they were like, hey, use our product, we can alleviate this problem with the fees by combining transactions through the Lightning Network or whatever. So I think that they kind of like scared everybody into, hey, use our product, or
well, so the thing to realize, though, is that the fees are actually part of the incentive model in Bitcoin, very heavily so. So once the miners are no longer going to mine Bitcoin, which is going to happen in the future, then they are going to have to solely rely on the fees. So if those fees are too low, then mining power is going to drop off, and therefore the network is going to become less secure than it should be. So there's some pretty good reasons behind why the fees are high, but it's obviously very frustrating for people who are trying to move a nominal amount of Bitcoin, for example, when it was congested, and the only way to do it was to pay some pretty significant fees. Now that has been alleviated by a combination of things that have happened. The prices have come down, so less people are playing. The backlog has been cleared. SegWit has helped. So the fees are actually at this point kind of back to normal. So there really is not that big of a difference at this point. It's
awesome. So you guys have a really cool feature on your blockchain, atomic swaps. And another thing is that Bitcoin talked about SegWit, and you guys actually implemented it before Bitcoin did, or
yeah, we actually have. Yeah, we already had that actually, but that actually has more to do with our governance system, that we had to split things up, and it works very similar to how SegWit ultimately ended up working.
Right. So for the investor, if they wanted to get involved in all these different coins, ICOs or whatever, how would they be able to use Decred through atomic swaps to get involved in these projects?
Well, so first let me, if you don't mind, I would like to talk about the value prop a little bit. So what actually makes Decred such an interesting coin from an investor's perspective, there's two big things that we have. One of them is our governance system. So our governance system has on-chain dispute resolution. So whenever there's a big fight, it can actually be resolved on-chain by the stakeholders. So people would actually Decred in their hand. And that takes, that does two things, right? It takes the emotional debates out of it, and then B, the decision is going to be reached, right? And with that, you actually get longevity. So we engineered Decred to be around 10, 20, 30 years from now. And if you look at some of the investors in the cryptocurrency space, they tend to gravitate towards Decred pretty early on because they have very long time horizons for their investments, right? So they're looking at 10, 20 years, right? They're not looking at next week. So they're looking for projects that will be around 10, 20, 30 years from now. So from an investment perspective, Decred is very attractive on that end. So the other big thing is that stakeholders are actually paid for partaking in the governance system. So if you vote on a proposal or if you vote to validate the prior block, you actually get paid. You get a portion of the block reward as well. So by staking, you are going to make some Decred passively, which is pretty nice as well. Right. So those are the two main value props that Decred has.
Okay. Do you have an elevator pitch for Decred? So for our audience doesn't really know a lot about cryptocurrencies. What would be your elevator pitch of, hey, here's Decred?
Decred is a cryptocurrency that is self-regulated and will be around 20 years from now. That would be probably the shortest I could answer that.
Okay, why would I want to use it? What features does it have that would interest me in Decred and to not only invest in Decred, but like I was mentioning with atomic swaps, to actually gain access to other assets?
So I'll talk about the atomic swaps. So the atomic swaps is a piece of software that the Decred developers wrote and the entire cryptocurrency space is actually using. So what atomic swaps means is you can have, for example, Bitcoin or Dash, and you would like to get a different cryptocurrency like Decred and Ethereum. So you can construct a smart contract that is trustless and escrowless, and you can exchange between two parties, completely decentralized and trustless, which is pretty cool, right? Because that kind of removes the entire exchange portion out of the equation, right? So you can cut out an entire third party and execute your exchanges directly. So in the very first atomic swap that was done was between Litecoin and Decred. So Charlie Lee and one of our developers, they created a little smart contract and they exchanged Decred for Litecoin.
Oh, cool.
So, and no third parties. So that was really super cool.
Do you see exchanges being able to use this, or would they just build their own?
So, well, if I may do a little plug here. So the Decred project is actually working on a DEX based on these atomic swaps. And so the complication is with atomic swaps is where's your order book, right? And you need to do some sort of price discovery. So those are the two things that are essentially missing. So, and what we want to do is we want to create a decentralized exchange. That's what the DEX means, by the way. So people can say, I would love to sell my Decred for this price, and then there's people who would say, I would like to buy Decred for this price. And then we create a decentralized order book, which will then automatically do the price discovery, and then at the very bottom are atomic swaps to actually, when you match, you execute an atomic swap to exchange the currencies. So obviously, what this does is that it is relatively slow. So you cannot do millisecond or microsecond trades because executing these atomic swaps is up on the order of against Bitcoin, which has slow moving blocks, upwards to an hour.
Right. So do you use something like Lightning Network to do that, or
so I have seen, and I'm not sure which two projects it were, but I think it was Litecoin and Bitcoin that actually did do Lightning atomic swaps, and that actually brings them back into the millisecond range. Right. So that is not going to be doable for all projects, though, because Ethereum is different enough for example, where that would not work as well as in.
I forget the name of the one of the first, or actually I believe it was the very first decentralized exchange, but they were using kind of an escrow system.
Yeah.
Where is this going to be similar to that?
So the idea is that it is not. So because the atomic swaps are atomic and trustless and escrowless, which basically means we only need to match the two parties to do the exchange. So, but what can happen though is that one side of the exchange, one of the parties does not play nicely, right? So, excuse me, so that they could create a contract that they say instead of getting one Litecoin, I'm getting two Litecoin, right? So if they violate their contract, it's going to take a little bit of time to detect that. So, and what we want to go do is create a system where bad traders are being flagged as people who don't play necessarily by the rules, and then you can make your own risk assessment. Like, am I willing to play with this person who has done, 3 transactions, or let 3 of them expire, right? So you're going to have a bit of a reputation system behind it.
Would this also kind of add resistance to censorship? Say if people in Venezuela wanted to have a DEX, wouldn't that be safer for them to use than the traditional exchange?
Absolutely. This is a critical feature for places like Venezuela, where people are literally dying because of the lack of funds and liquidity. So because this is trustless, escrowless, and there's no third parties, so there's no stopping it. It's kind of like Bitcoin. You cannot you cannot
shoot
stop
guns
it.
at the numbers and make them change.
Right, you cannot do that, right? So you are bound by the laws of physics on this. And the DEX would work, or will work in a similar way. So that means that people could then exchange one cryptocurrency for another. So the only big missing part there, of course, is the fiat portion. Right? So for that, you are going to, for now, still going to require, the traditional on and off ramps. But but in the future,
pegged coins like USDT or C or whatever they have.
Well, but the way I view the world is I do believe that in the future you are going to be able to purchase goods with cryptocurrency directly, and then it's no longer an issue, right? Because now you are going to see 2 prices on goods, right? You're going to see the fiat price and you're going to see the cryptocurrency price. I really see that happen.
So you have some news coming out next week or something, or is that anything you're able to talk about now? Or I mean, this won't even come out until next week, so.
Well, so I can tell you what is imminently going to get released. So our proposal system, which is finally done enough that we are going to be able to put it up, was a bit of a slog the last couple of weeks because we thought we were ready, and then we kept finding little things that we wanted to do a little bit differently. But we are going to release Politeia, and what that does, that is the final piece that we are missing in our governance system. So our governance system is 2-tiered. One of them is on the blockchain, which makes really tough decisions, consensus and protocol changes. And then the one on top of that are proposals. So, and proposals are, can we spend some of the treasury money on stickers? Can we go to this conference, right? So that's just spending Decred on ongoing activities.
So it's kind of a subset of the proposal system?
So the proposal system, no, it's actually the full proposal system, and it's all about spending Decred on things, whatever those things are. But that's where simpler things happen, right? So marketing budgets, swag, that kind of stuff all needs to go through that system in order to be purchased.
Right.
So, but if I have a development team and I say I want to develop this really cool feature and I need this amount of Decred for this period of time, then you can create a disbursement schedule on it, and you get disbursed every month. Because I mean, obviously people need to be paid, right? So, and as long as the milestones are being hit, you're going to get funds.
Oh, okay.
So if you would disappear, then obviously the funds would disappear as well.
And where would they go? Would they go back into the blockchain and be reissued to the miners, or?
So that's a good question. So the way actually our treasury works is that every block, 10% of it goes to our treasury. So if we don't disburse it, it just remains there. So it's
okay. So it builds.
Yeah. So unlike Dash, where it's burnt and all that kind of stuff, that does not happen. So we are pay as you go. So whatever we spend is what we spend. Whatever we don't spend just sits there until it does get spent.
Right. I know with Dash they actually added something called Dash Boost, where it's kind of a micro treasury that they actually ask for funds and it goes into this, and this is distributed for some of these smaller projects.
Right.
And people don't have to put up so much. With Dash, it's $5 for proposal. How does that differ with you guys?
So we do have a paywall in order to play, and the entire reason for that is
Spam.
the spam. It's literally what it is, and so it's very cheap right now. So actually, I did a testnet test yesterday, and I spent 0.002 Decred, one for signing up, and then so 0.001 to sign up, and then 0.001 to do a proposal.
Yeah.
So we are probably going to ratchet that up to a couple of dollars, like $1-2. I mean, not a lot of money, but enough to be irritated and to dissuade people from just submitting garbage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't see Dash is doing $5. It's $5 to submit a proposal. That's like $1,000.
Yeah.
But it makes you up your game on what your proposal is going to be.
Yep.
You makes you really stop and think about okay, is this going to pass? Do I need to lower the price? And it also makes you competitive and it's like, well, I don't think this will pass. I don't want to risk $1,000, so I'm going to bring my price down a little.
Right. Well, so this is where Dash is definitely ahead of us. Dash has already had the time to actually experiment with this and see what works and what doesn't. We don't claim that we know the answer to this, and we are going to start low, and we're going to ratchet up the price as needed. So one of the things that we do in Decred is to make sure that we always have an out, if you will, right? So if we're doing something wrong, we need to have a way of correcting that.
Right.
And we are not afraid to admit that, you know what, we did get this one thing wrong, right? So let's go solve it instead of, whitewashing it.
Yeah. Do you guys have a core entity, kind of like, Dash has Dash Core Group, but that's not really officially Dash. It's just a group of people who are acting as the main members. People think that they are the CEO of Dash, but he's the CEO of Dash Core Group.
Right. So we actually as a historical artifact, we still have the Decred Holding Group, which is the one that oversees the treasury.
Okay.
So while that still exists, the only reason it does is because the proposal system isn't complete yet. So there's 3 steps to our proposal system, and the first one is going to get released, which is going to make it work well enough for daily use, and we are going to start using it. But at the end of the pipeline, a human is going to disburse the funds that were voted on.
Right.
So the next step is to auto disburse those funds.
Right.
So that is phase 2 and 3, really. So in phase 2 and 3 is where once we get there, then we are actually going to donate the entire amount that we have. It's over 550,000 Decred, so it's in the order of $40 million, something along those lines. It's a pretty substantial number. And we're going to donate that entire amount to the stakeholders, right. and at that point it becomes a multi-signature wallet. So it requires multiple people to sign, and at that point it's no longer, there is no core group. There is just people who receive Decred for services rendered.
Oh, cool. So you don't have they're not a central authority with Dash, but it appears that they are a central authority. But at the same time, if they're not functioning correctly, a competitor can come in and take their place.
Sure. Well, so we actively want to be out of that job. So Company Zero, the one that is the one that does that right now, that's the company I work for. So we originated Decred, but we actively want to no longer be those guys. So we are going to continue working in Decred, but we are also going to put up proposals.
Trying to put yourself out of a job.
No, because we are going to. We have many ideas that we want to do with Decred, but what we're going to go do is we are going to put our proposals up on the proposal system and hope that the stakeholders like them. Yeah. We actually have no guarantee that we are going to be the ones pulling the strings later on, but that's by design. I mean, this has to be fully decentralized, and that means giving up control.
I think it's really cool, all these different projects that have these governance models. You're able to look at Dash and see what features you like. They're able to look at you and see what features that you have they like, and the same with Smart Cash and all the rest of them. It's interesting. They're able to grow off of each other. They're not so closed-minded, kind of as what you would have with Bitcoin Core or.
Yeah, so I think that's actually very healthy to have multiple projects. So been in the space for a very long time, and I know that a lot of these projects are not going to be around. So I feel bad for some of the investors because they are going to get caught with their pants down. But that said, we do need some diversity, and we do need to have some a couple of solid projects that kind of lead the way. Really,
I was talking with Jeff Garzik, and that's what he had pointed out. He said there's too many coins. A lot of them are crap coins, and there's going to be some consolidation. So
there is going to be a crypto winner.
Yeah,
it's going to be very ugly. A lot of these projects are going to fall off. I mean, if for the folks who don't know or remember, 2013 had a similar, in 2013, Bitcoin went up drastically, and it caused a lot of new projects to being created and generated. And if you look at the projects that existed then and still exist today, it's a handful, and there were hundreds of them.
Yep.
So this is not
a lot of that was like falsely led upward by Mt. Gox, where you would constantly see a $200 difference between Mt. Gox and the rest of the exchanges.
Well, sure, but my point though is that Bitcoin came down in price drastically, and inherent to that, a lot of these projects basically ran out of money, and it's going to happen to the ICO space. This is going to happen in this space because even though Bitcoin is at $6,500 or $6,000, and people are complaining how terrible it is, if you rewind just 1 year, it was not $6,000 at this point in time, right? I think it was at this point pushing 2 or 3.
Yeah, 2,000. This time last year, it was 4,500.
Okay, so it was, but still not 6,000, right? And so and now people are complaining about it. Like, remember last year? I do.
Of all of these, like, what do you see in some of these upcomers or the new coins? Do you see any? We're talking about the consolidation. Which ones do you see coming out as winners that are here for the long haul?
Well, so I honestly believe that Decred is going to be in one of the more solid coins, just purely because we have future-proofed ourselves.
Right.
So I think that there's going to be increasing fractions inside some other currencies. There's more talk now about another Ethereum fork, and forking is really not the issue, though. What really happens, though, is you fork the community, and that's what you cannot undone. If you look at Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin, there's a lot of bad blood, and it's unhealthy. It's literally unhealthy for the space. The marketing campaign that Bitcoin Cash has been doing is disingenuous, and it didn't make people have lost money. It's terrible.
I don't want nothing to do with Bitcoin Cash anymore, just solely because of the statement that Bitcoin Cash is the real Bitcoin.
Right,
I think
it's
that's
nonsense.
Disingenuous.
Yeah, it's really truly nonsense.
Misleading, and it can, for a new user, if they're confused and somebody scams them and sells them Bitcoin Cash at the price of Bitcoin,
sure, among other things. No, it's very unfortunate, and actually, it's not that I dislike the project, because I actually understand where they came from, right? So they were unhappy with the state of things, so they were going to do their own thing, created their own sandbox, all on board up to there. But so again, it's just a marketing campaign.
Right.
But the thing though is that there's now a religion that has come out of this, right? There's the Bitcoin religion and there's the Bitcoin Cash religion, and they're clashing, and that just does nobody any good.
Cult following, Daniel Kraywitz talks a lot about the cults.
And there's nothing good coming out of this, right?
Definitely not. What about losers? What do you think will be the most immediate losers? Because there's so much crap floating around.
Man, so I'm going to say something really that is not popular, but I think that 3 years in, and I'm talking about 3 years of Ethereum, and if you look at the dApps that have appeared and are in existence, it's pretty minimal. Yeah. And if you actually look, the biggest success was CryptoKitties, and while hilarious, it actually, I think, shows the lack of real-world application for platforms such as Ethereum. Yeah. So that means that we have a whole bunch of these platforms are being built and that are already in existence, and but since there are not enough dApps, I don't think all of them are going to be around. I think there's going to be a bit of a bloodbath. Some of them have raised so much money that they're going to be around indefinitely, but not because they have a product.
You're a coder, or?
Yeah, I write code every day.
I was talking with Colin Cantrell of Nexus, and they have a kind of an answer for Ethereum, this whole Tritium platform that they're working on. And what he says is that his description is that Ethereum is this big ball of code that's really intermingled, and you can't extract parts of it. It's really sticky and messy. So his idea is to take those and make them more modular so that you can plug and play whatever features you would want in Ethereum in your smart contract, and it's much easier to add whatever it is you want. Do you think that's a good idea, or are you guys looking at things like that?
No, so I think I was pointing out a more fundamental issue. So I think that there's a lot of hype around smart contracts, and they seem like a very good idea on the surface, and they really are. But if you actually start stripping away the silly ideas, and by the way, this is a real project. For example, sand on the blockchain, Sandcoin, it's a thing.
Okay.
So it tracks sand on a blockchain. It's nonsense. You don't need that. But that is my point. So a lot of this on the blockchain product is mostly not useful. So the problem cryptocurrency solved was digital bearer bonds, right? So you can show up and you know, you have value in your hands that you can hand over to someone else, and then that person has that value and can take that value. That is the actual underlying problem that the blockchain has solved. And smart contracts enable the transfer of said digital bearer bonds. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
That is what it does. So the moment you bring in the real world, now you're dealing with jurisdictions. And that kind of defeats the need for blockchain. So if you do not have digital bearer bonds problem, then you probably don't need a blockchain.
I don't need to put my toilet paper on a blockchain.
You do not need to put your toilet paper on a blockchain. You do not need to put
my gardener,
FedEx on the blockchain. So, I mean, there's databases for that do it much faster and much cheaper. So I think that a whole bunch of the business arena where, you know, that literally adds on the blockchain, that's going to be a massacre. I mean, there's nothing of value is going to come out of that.
Well, yeah, anywhere there's a value proposition, scammers are going to show up, and by the same token, ICOs are like, okay, I have this idea. How in the hell can I put it on the blockchain? Because I know I can get money.
Right. Well, and last year I talked to several people that told me, hey, man, I have this idea for an ICO. Wait, so you don't have an idea for a business, you have an idea for an ICO. Okay, so you're already lost, right, at that point.
Right.
That's going to be just nonsense.
Yeah, there's not a lot of uses. What are some good ICOs out there? Do you have any ideas on have you seen anything that's an ICO that's worth a crap?
So I'm going to make a more generic statement. I like ICOs for what they bring, but they have caused so much damage at this point that they no longer bring what they set out to do.
Right.
So what I mean by that is that ICOs democratized fundraising. And that was very powerful, because now you no longer had to go to the government and ask permission to raise funds. You didn't have to go through Series A, Series D, registration, all that stuff. And that was extremely powerful. So, but it was also too easy. So too many people showed up with bad ideas, and these projects are all being wiped out right now. But what it also did is also brought attention from the government onto these ICOs, and now they're going to get regulated. And guess what? It's no longer a democratized vehicle to raise funds. So, so that said, I think that ICOs are in deep, deep trouble. And a lot of these projects are going to get fined or put out of business by, by governments around the world that didn't like the way they raise money.
And what about the idea of these utility tokens? What do you think of that?
I really suffer on that one. So, and I will ask this question every time, and I've never gotten a satisfactory answer, is why? Show me one good use case, so in action. And this is what I was getting at earlier. It's like, if it's not a digital bearer bond, then you probably can just use a database. You probably should use a database instead of putting it on a blockchain. So if you are going to trace I don't know, FedEx packages with a token, sorry, I don't see the point in that.
Right. Well, I mean, like one is the marijuana industry. That Tokes token, that one's pretty interesting. You can actually go into a dispensary in Vegas and buy with it.
So now you have currency, though.
Yeah, but what they're doing with that is they're also offering reward points and stuff like that.
Oh, sure.
So it's customer loyalty, actually.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I can totally see the use of that. No, but I mean, another use case, and I think actually this is kind of where some of this came from, is like video games.
Yeah.
Right? In video games, you can have a fixed number of currency, and then you can exchange them using tokens. Completely see the use of that, right?
Yeah.
Because if you want to buy that battle axe and you need to pay 1,000 credits for that.
Yeah. There's a kid. There's some kid doing. I forget what his name is, but it's a game called Quarters. And you use your mom's credit card or whatever to go onto the site, and you buy these tokens, and you're able to buy things within games or play.
Well, but that could be all just database entries as well, right? No, but I'm talking about actually being able to exchange these tokens independently with other players outside of the game, and also exchange items, right? So I have this battle axe, right? You could use a cross-atomic swap, right? I'm going to give you my battle axe for
there you go
for that.
Are you thinking of implementing that, and getting that into the games?
We have such a big roadmap on features that we want to implement in Decred. I'm going to be busy for the foreseeable future. So no, but actually, what we want to get to ultimately with Decred is that we are going to be a sovereign entity. So you cannot sue a person. I mean, you could sue a person, but that person does not control the network, right? So then you can go after individuals, but not after the network, not after the project. That is what we're trying to get to. Awesome. So, and then once we get to the auto dispersal, that's when we have arrived at the original vision actually of what Decred was supposed to be. So we're getting pretty close. And I'm the one writing that code.
Dash is already like that. I don't think it's a...
Well, so what Dash...
automated...
but what Dash doesn't have is the on-chain resolution and on-chain forking mechanism that Decred has, right? Where you can, when we make a tough decision, the entire network changes and you cannot fork it off. That is really what sets those two projects apart. But yes, Dash did their proposal system before Decred. We did the on-chain stuff first, and now we're working on the proposal system. And Dash did the proposal system, and I don't think there's plans to do on-chain stuff, but but that's where we're a little bit different, though.
Yeah, they're adding smart contracts and things like that, but that's down the road.
So let's go talk about that for just a couple of seconds, though. So the fact that we are going to make this into a sovereign entity means that we are going to have to make smart contracts more usable. So we are probably going to go down that route and enable smart contract functionality. Because the smart contracts exist in every blockchain. I mean, let's make sure that everybody understands that. So it's called Bitcoin scripts, or a version thereof, and it does little things. And actually, when you send Bitcoin to somebody, you execute a sanctioned smart contract that actually does the transfer. So the contracts exist, but not all functionality is available, right? And Ethereum made it very available, and then you have varying levels of having complexity available to you to make these smart contracts. So, but it is going to probably happen that Decred is going to make its scripting language more available to people. And it might even be an idea to put some tokens that have come out of that. So those are all things that are going to happen in the future. And then people could actually leverage the entire chain and do things that Ethereum does, that Bitcoin does, that Dash does. So we are not a one-trick pony, is the other thing I was trying to get at. Is if you look at most projects actually in the space, it is Bitcoin plus a niche feature, right? Whereas Decred is, we are Decred and we have all these niche features already implemented as it is.
But I guess EOS is trying to replace Ethereum. What do you think will come out of that?
Man,
I don't know. It's looking kind of...
I typically don't rag on other projects because I know how hard it is to get it off the ground, but I'll make an exception for EOS. That is a dumpster fire of unmitigated proportions. The launch was a catastrophic failure. So they are not going to run out of money because they liquidated actually their Ethereum. So they are sitting on a giant pile of money. So they're going to exist just because they have that much money. But there's going to be a reckoning with that project. It's not well run. It seems to be not doing well.
Hopefully they'll come around and make something.
That'd be great. I wish them the best.
We need more alternatives than Ethereum.
I don't disagree, but somebody who knows what they're doing needs to clean house over there, because it's not great right now.
There you go. I don't disagree either.
Yeah, so we are going to be platinum sponsors at the Texas Bitcoin Conference, October 27, 28, I want to say. And we invited several folks that are close or like the Decred project or have worked with us. Various folks from folks that think about governance, investors, developers. We're going to have a lot of variety to talk about Decred in business. It's going to be great. So and we have some big names like Chris Bernanke, Chris Dannon. So Chris Bernanke, who wrote that book, what is it, Crypto Assets, and he runs Placeholder VC. So he's going to do a panel, and he's just going to help out. He's actually going to help out at the booth. Oh, so you get to talk to Chris Bernanke, and he's typically not as available as you'd like. Yeah. So Chris Dannon from Iterative Capital. So they have an OTC desk, and they are just awesome. So they are hackers who decided to become, brokers is not the right word, but they expose people to crypto, and they have their own processes. But they are, a bunch of really smart guys that do cool things. So if you're actually looking to get into crypto, these are actually one of these firms that are actually solid, that you could go to and say, help me out. How do I make an investment? How do I do it safely? Right? So and those folks are going to talk about Decred, why they've chosen Decred as one of the currencies that they hold, that they are going to look at a 10, 20, or even 30-year horizon. So it's going to be pretty awesome.
You guys are, again, a governance coin. There's going to be other people representing other governance coins there. Are you guys going to do anything like have a panel or anything and invite some of the other ones on and kind of share ideas about governance?
Absolutely.
Across the different platforms?
Yeah, so there's definitely a governance panel. I think they still talk about maybe a second governance panel. I don't know where that's going to go, but there are several governance talks. So where the systems are going to be talked about. But the governance panel has going to have various projects on there, because it would not make sense to just talk about Decred, because that's now we're just pitching, right? It's
right. Yeah.
And I would not be interested in that. So
So like Rolf Lewis of Zencash will be there. There will be at least, I believe, one speaker from Dash, who he's just with Dash Core team working in South America. But I think there's some others out there. Factum is also.
Factum is out there.
Factum is also a governance coin. So I think it'd be really great to have these different projects even on your stage. And
we're going to obviously do that, because it is interesting. It is interesting to get other people's perspectives, other coins, ideas, and you know what? The crypto community sometimes is at odds with one another, but we also need each other a little bit.
I know, right? Yeah. So that was we talked with Craig Wright. We actually interviewed him, and that was one of the things that he pointed out. Hey, Bitcoin Cash is not your enemy, or it's the credit card companies, it's the banks, it's not the other crypto projects are not your enemy.
Yeah,
it's the system.
I think that actually got lost a little bit last year in the in the brawls where people were at each other's throats, and they kind of forgot where the enemy truly lies. Right. So, and I'm hoping that it's going to calm down a little bit. Because there's too much heat right now between the crypto projects, and they're at each other's throats for really not great reasons. I mean, can we go arrest some of these people from 2008 and 9 that ran the economy into the ground, the world economy?
Yeah,
there's some bigger problems to solve.
Yeah, we need a Madoff coin.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what? We have several of those.
Yeah, Madoff with all your money.
Yeah, there's enough coins out there that have a Madoff-like property. So stay away from those.
All right, man. Well, this has been Marco from Decred, and check that out. What's the website, and how can people find out more about it?
Decred.org. Decred, .org right there. So that is the easiest way to find us. If you want to talk to us, go to slack.decred.org. Steps there on how to get on our Slack. We're pretty active out there. Twitter, you can follow me at Marco Peereboom, so at Marco Peereboom on Twitter.
And if you have a shiny blue jacket, take a picture, put it on Twitter.
Yeah, we have the best swag. We have the Decred jacket. That's actually really a thing.
Yeah.
So that is going to be sported throughout the Texas Bitcoin Conference. There's going to be a lot of Decred jacket. Awesome. And actually, as good as time as any to say that actually some of them are going to be raffled off.
Oh,
so
cool.
you can own your very own Decred jacket if you show up at the conference.
So October 27th and 28th in Austin, Texas. Go to the texasbitcoinconference.com. Use the coupon code crypto and save 15%. And there's a buy one get one free offer right now. So check that out.
Yeah, go purchase some tickets. Do it right now.
Now!
Now, yeah, hurry.